This video is sponsored by EA, and as always, a massive thank you to them for supporting the channel. Yes people, what's going on? It's your boy Sick Ashton, and yes, I am very sick today, unfortunately. Sick in this way, not this way. I guess both ways, kind of. Like, yeah, I'm sick, but I'm also sick.
Anyway,
in today's video I'm going to be bringing you my Apex Legends tier list for Season 7. You guys know the drill by now. Every season we bring out a tier list for every legend in Apex, putting them from F tier all the way up to S tier, from the worst to best legends in Apex. And this is all in my opinion, of course. None of this is factual or anything. Like, this is all just based off of my experience playing Apex and what I think about each legend. And of course, you guys may have different opinions, so do be sure to let me know down in the comment section below what your tier list would be for Apex Season 7. I love to hear it. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content from myself. I appreciate all of your guys' constant love and support. We're aiming for 60,000 subscribers by the end of 2020, so thank you all so much for your continued support as always. But moving on and jumping straight into the F tier of the Legends tier list for Season 7 of Apex Legends. This is the hardest tier for me to try and explain my way through, because I know a ton of people are always so upset when their main is chucked in the F tier, the worst tier on this list. And I just want to say I'm really sorry for all of you Mirage mains out there, because this time round it is Mirage in the F tier for Season 7. Now, let me explain. I'm not saying Mirage is not a fun legend to play, because he can be a ton of fun to run around in pubs with, but for me, his abilities when compared with the likes of Horizon, Wraith, Gibby, Lifeline, literally every other legend in the game right now, I believe their abilities are more impactful and more useful for the team and for the legend themselves than Mirage's bamboozles. I think any seasoned player knows how to deal with a Mirage fairly quickly, and only in very, very specific occasions can his ability actually make any kind of impact, even the Invisi-Res, because for me, if you are running Mirage just for an Invisi-Res, then surely you should just be running Lifeline or Gibraltar, because their reviving abilities are far stronger and they have a ton more other abilities that they can use to impact fights that Mirage does not have. Mirage's bamboozles for me, they just, you know, I've played the game for long enough now to know the difference between a bamboozle and a real player. Like, your chances of bamboozling me with your tactical ability are pretty much zero. It's pretty easy to tell apart a bamboozle from an actual Mirage, especially on console where you get aim assist on the actual Mirage, and the actual Mirage does have footsteps where the bamboozles do not. So for me, his abilities just don't stand up to the likes of every other legend in the game right now, and unfortunately for me, that puts him in the F tier. I'm sorry Mirage mains, he's fun, but for me, he's the worst legend in the game right now. Okay then boys, up into the D tier, and we know that we skip the E tier on this channel because it's cursed, in case you didn't realise. E tier is cursed. We don't do E tier on this channel, straight into the D tier, and in this tier we have one legend once again, and for me this was borderline. I nearly put this legend in F tier as well, but my friends did convince me after some long talks that this legend is slightly more useful than Mirage, and I have to tend to agree now that I've had that talk. My initial reaction was to put this legend in F tier, but for me, Rampart is the D tier legend this season round. The Amps Walls are just slightly more of a utility to the team and can be slightly more impactful on fights in my opinion than Mirage's bamboozles, moving her up into the D tier. But Sheila, I don't think I've ever seen a Sheila used effectively, and that might just be because I've never seen a good Rampart main, and that might be because all good players know that Rampart isn't that effective. And the reason that good players don't use Rampart is because her abilities rely solely on being pretty still and fortifying an area, and Apex is a game that relies heavily on movement and fast-paced action, and that's where you're going to be having the most amount of fun in this game. That's why you see momentum characters and characters that have movement-based abilities used a lot, and they are considered some of the most fun legends in the game, like Pathfinder and Horizon. Those legends are fun because they have movement-based abilities, but Rampart is the opposite of that. Her amped walls are something you have to stand behind to use effectively, and Sheila is a turret which you can only use while sitting still in one position, of course, unless of course you're on the back of a trident in Olympus, but even then that's not as effective as you might think it might be. Ultimately, Rampart is just a slow character to use. I don't think she's very fun to use at all, and I don't even think she's that effective in her defensive capabilities compared to other defensive legends in the game, so for me, that's why she is a D tier legend, and I don't think many of you will complain with that one, to be fair. So then, with F tier and D tier out of the way, we can finally start talking about some of the better legends in Apex this season. In C tier we have the lower half of the average section. B tier and C tier are the average legends in this game that, with a buff here or there, they could definitely be taken up into some of the better legends in the game, but currently in their current state they're just not quite there. They might need a little bit of work to take them up a peg or two. So in C tier we have 3 legends. We have Loba, Watson and Octane. Yes, I actually put Octane in C tier for once, not D tier or F tier, and I'm going to explain to you why. So I know this is going to upset a lot of people because I know so many people are really big Octane mains, and I understand if you're upset, but let me explain to you why he's in C tier. So when you really think about Octane's abilities, every one of his abilities are bettered by another legend. For example, his stim can be bettered by Pathfinder's grapple. His jump pad is literally a worse version of Horizon's tactical ability, which recharges in 12 seconds. Like, why would you choose an Octane jump pad over a Horizon lift when Horizon lift takes you higher, you can strafe in it, you have 100% accuracy, and it recharges in 12 seconds, whereas you have none of those things with an Octane jump pad. And for me, the stim is definitely not as good as Pathfinder's grapple, or even Wraith's phase. You know, it's not a movement based ability, but you do run a little bit faster with Wraith's phase. Obviously you have Bangalore's fast movement when she's shot at, and obviously as well you have Bloodhound's ultimate, which makes them run a little bit faster as well. It's probably the weakest of the faster movement abilities in the game, but it is a movement based ability, meaning it is a lot more fun to use and definitely a lot more impactful on fights than, say, a legend like Rampart or Mirage, who doesn't quite have that same mobility in those close range engagements. One upside to Octane's stim though is the fact that you have an increased strafe speed during that time, and that can be really difficult to hit if you can master it, so that's definitely an upside to Octane. I've had trouble in the past hitting a strafing, stimming Octane before, and with the new buff to Octane's passive to make him regenerate health a little bit quicker, it's just slightly better because you can stim a little bit more freely now, whereas before I definitely always looked to my health before stimming into a fight, because even though it takes out a small chunk, sometimes the small numbers in Apex are what matter the most, and if you're taking out a small chunk of your health before going into a fight, then the team that you're fighting already are going to have a tiny bit of an upper hand on you. I've also put Loba in the C tier this time around because I think she is in a place where she is bordering being a B tier legend. For me, she is the top of C tier this time around and very, very close to B tier, but here's why she is not B tier. While she's had an update to her ultimate so that she can take as much ammo from it as she wants, which is amazing by the way, I love this change. I thought it was going to be too powerful once it was introduced into the game, but people haven't really taken full advantage of it yet, and I think she is definitely seeing more usage this season than she was in Season 6. It's definitely a buff I think she needed, and definitely a really good buff for her, but I do think she needs a touch more work in other areas to really bring her up into B tier and perhaps even A tier. I think if her bracelet moved a little bit faster and that was considered a more impactful movement based ability, then that would really take her up a notch. But for me, the way that the bracelet travels a little bit slowly in my opinion, and teams can basically shoot her while she's waiting for her bracelet to land. The amount of times I've seen a Loba try and escape from me, but I've just shot her whilst her bracelet is in the air, it happens all the time, and I think if she could just have a little bit of a faster travel time on her bracelet, she would be a much stronger legend, and people would really consider her up there with some of the better legends in the game. I also think with Loba's ultimate, she should be able to take at least 3 items from the ult compared to other legends which can only take 2, because of course she is supposed to be the master thief, so why can't she take more than other people? I don't know, especially on Olympus where there are no vaults that she can steal from. That was obviously her upside for World's Edge, where she could steal from the vaults where other legends can't, but that's not a case to be made on Olympus, so she needs something that can really take her up a tiny little bit as well, so I think one more item from the black market would do her amazingly. And also we have Wattson in C tier as well. Now Wattson is a very difficult legend to put into any tier because while she was very meta in competitive Apex from Season 2 onwards for a couple of seasons, she's really fallen off recently and doesn't see much usage at all anymore, especially in the main game, in pub lobbies, and even in ranked I barely ever see Wattsons anymore, and for me I just don't think she is kept up with the same amount of love and attention that other legends have got in terms of buffs over time. I think she's actually had a slight nerf as well, where her pylons now don't last forever. They do actually have a time limit on them, so when you put down a pylon you can't really secure an area forever unless you're packing ultimate accelerants. You are going to have to keep charging up your ultimate and replacing the pylons down once they're destroyed. You can't just hold down a building with a pylon forever anymore, which I do think is a major turn off for a lot of players. I don't think she's very fun to use in pubs at all because she is very slow paced, just like Rampart, and I do only have her in C tier above Rampart because her pylon ability is definitely a much better utility for a competitive team than Rampart's Sheila or Amped Walls in my opinion, and she's more usable in those situations, but she's not very fun. For me, she definitely needs a lot of love and attention to bring her up to the place that other legends are, especially in terms of defensive capabilities. Moving on from the C tier up into the B tier, we have another 3 legends. We have Bangalore, Crypto and Revenant in the B tier this time around, and the reasoning behind Revenant being a B tier legend this time is because with the introduction of Olympus, we've seen a lot less Revenant plays because of the large open spaces in this map, making it very hard for RevSens to be effective, and I love this change because I am personally a massive hater of Revenant. If Revenant was removed from Apex right now, I would be fine with it. But for me, the changes that they've made to Revenant over time, with Wraith's Portal making it so if you are sent back to the totem, you can't use Wraith's Portal for a couple of seconds, I think that could be changed a little bit so it's actually increased so you have a longer time to wait before you can use Wraith's Portal. But that being said, Revenant is being used less. I think he is less effective this season than in other seasons, especially with the changes to Crypto, which we're going to go over as well, but I think we are finally in a place with Revenant which we can say he is at a bearable level. Only a few people are using him. He is actually effective in what he does, but he is not obnoxious anymore, and I definitely think B tier is where he belongs, right in the middle of the pack. Crypto's also in the B tier because he is really effective at being a recon character. For me, he's one of the best recon characters in terms of scanning beacons because you have a much better accessibility to beacons with a drone than when you are with a Bloodhound or a Pathfinder who actually has to run up to the beacon. Crypto can scan it instantly with his drone and can fly at the beacon from a mile away, which is amazing. You don't have to be playing that beacon in order to scan it and see where the next ring is, and I really do think that is a great ability. He also has the ability to see how many teams are in the current area by looking up at the banners with his drone, which I think is an ability which would actually be a lot better if he didn't have to be in his drone to see. I think that would be a really good buff for Crypto, just to be able to look at banners and see how many squads are in the surrounding area. I think that would really take Crypto up a level. However, Crypto's had a nerf recently in which teammates are now stunned by his EMP again. That was something which was removed in previous seasons but has been re-implemented because of the wave of Revenant Crypto teams that was in ranked a couple of seasons ago, and this is a change I'm fine with. I think it's a balanced change, a really balanced change that they made to him. I think it works fine, and I think Crypto is still effective in what he does, and if used correctly, he can still be a very powerful legend. Bangalore is probably the one legend in B tier I could see a few people being a little bit upset about because Bangalore is a very popular and effective legend in Apex, and I honestly nearly put her in A tier, but for me, when considering the current meta of Bloodhound scans and just recon characters in general, with Crypto also being used a little bit and his drone picks up people through smoke, I don't think her smoke ability is as useful this season as it was in previous seasons, and for that reason, for the Season 7 tier list, I have to bring her down into the B tier, even with her buff to her ultimate, which makes it explode a little bit faster, which actually has a massive impact in game, by the way. I don't think it was actually a necessary change. I think Bangalore was really in a good position where she was. She was probably, in my opinion, the most balanced legend in the game. Even now with that change, I still think that remains the same. She is still very balanced. She has a really nice passive ability with her movement increase when she is being shot at. It's not too overpowered, it's not obnoxious, and it is very effective for Bangalore herself. These smokes are effective in certain situations, but with the amount of Bloodhounds running around, I do think that just takes her down a notch this season, while the meta is a Bloodhound meta. And her ultimate ability is strong but not overpowered, it is in a good place, and she is probably the top of B tier for me. She is borderline A tier, but I just have to bring her down into B tier, just simply for the fact that we are in a Bloodhound meta. Now then, moving up into the A tier, this is some of the top tier legends in Apex this season. These are all legends that if you run into them, you know you're up for a hard time, regardless of who's on them. These abilities that these legends possess are very, very strong and can impact a fight massively to swing it in their favour. We have another 3 legends in this tier, and this time round, for this season, it's going to be Pathfinder, Lifeline, and Caustic. Caustic is the ultimate defensive legend in Apex right now, especially with his gas just being buffed so it does even more damage. It's incredibly strong and is a very, very big deterrent for any team trying to push a building or a small space that you're trying to defend. His gas bomb ultimate is also incredibly strong late game if you can get it in a tiny ring, because teams simply cannot counter it unless they are running a Caustic themselves who is not affected by enemy Caustic gas. Caustic gas is immensely strong. I don't actually think it needed the buff it got. It's now even stronger than ever, and the reason for this buff was because they actually nerfed it slightly as well, making it so teams can see through it a little bit more clearly. If you're on the enemy team looking through gas, you can see enemies, but the fact it hits even harder now is going to make it so much harder to kill enemies whilst you are fighting in that gas, especially where it slows you down as well. I think Caustic is the best defensive legend in the game by an absolute mile. It's a very, very strong legend to run, especially with his fortified perk as well, because he is of course a bigger legend. A good Caustic is a very, very hard character to kill. Pathfinder's also up here in A tier as well, because he is finally in a place which he is perfectly suited, I think. He is my main. I love Pathfinder. I've been there throughout all of his changes and buffs, and I think he's finally in a place now where he is usable. He is in a good state and he is not obnoxious to the game. The fact that his grapple now charges depending on how far you travel is a really nice change in my opinion. If you do a short grapple, it's going to recharge really quickly, and if you do a long grapple, you're going to have to wait longer for that grapple to come back, and I think that's probably the best way they could have worked Pathfinder's grapple. You're no longer punished for grappling and missing or having a short grapple, but you also do have to wait the time if you do get one of those fat grapples off across the map and you go sliding 100 meters at a time. You're no longer going to be able to do that every 10 seconds or so, which I think was probably fair. It was a little bit much back a couple of seasons ago, and he's definitely in a balanced place. The fact that Pathfinder's ultimate zipline also fully charges to 100% every time you scan a recon beacon is also a really strong ability, especially in a ranked environment where you're going to be scanning those beacons pretty much every bring if you know what you're doing and you want to get those early rotations. Having a zipline to help you get there faster is a really nice touch as well, and I think he's in a place where he's usable. He's definitely a really fun legend. He's definitely very, very strong when used correctly, and for me, Pathfinder is finally balanced as he should be. He's an A tier legend, not S tier like he used to be, but definitely a very, very strong legend. We also have Lifeline up in this tier, and I don't have any gameplay of Lifeline because when I hit 10,000 kills on Lifeline, I decided I don't want to play her ever again. I'm just done with her. Not because she's bad though, she is incredibly strong. As you can see from this gameplay here, the spam revive is just so hard to get around. The fact that Lifeline's revive doesn't have a cooldown is baffling to me, but whilst it's in this state, she is up there with the best legends in the game because she can just constantly revive you, give herself and her team cover with that revive shield and revive you at the same time. It's incredibly obnoxious if spammed, and incredibly, incredibly strong and impactful on fights. It makes you play differently if a Lifeline is getting a res off, because you definitely want to try and push it before that res happens, because you never know if she has a gold bag, which would really swing the way the fight is actually going. Needless to say, her Lifeline heal drone and her care packages are also really decent abilities as well. Health on the go and a potential for purple shield every couple of minutes is just a really nice set of abilities, and she, for a medic, is very, very strong. She's the best reviving legend in the game for a absolute mile because she can just spam res whenever she wants. She's incredibly strong and she's an A tier legend for these reasons. That leaves us with the 4 legends up in S tier. We've had 2 legends in S tier now forever, but finally this season I've decided to take the plunge and say that 2 other legends are up in S tier. The top tier, the best legends in the game, in my opinion, this season to use. We have Wraith, of course, Gibraltar again, of course, but this season around, we have the additions of Bloodhound and Horizon to the S tier legend category, and we're going to start off with Wraith and Gibraltar to get them out the way. I don't need to talk about Wraith. If you've played Apex Legends, you know Wraith is the most popular character in the game for a reason. Her phase is incredibly useful for solo players and aggressive players to get in and out of fights, and her portal is great for team rotations. Really, just Wraith is a strong legend in terms of abilities, but she is also very cool. I mean, look at her, everyone likes her. She's just a really cool concept for a character and a legend in general, and I think that's why so many people like her. Respawn are determined to try and get the pick rates down for her, but I don't think it will ever happen because people just love this character, and I'm gonna say it now, hashtag leave Wraith alone. I think she's in a perfect place. I really don't think she needs any changes, and if you disagree, let me know in the comment section below. However, I do think Gibraltar up in S tier may be in the need for a slight nerf. Gibraltar is very strong this season, especially on Olympus, where you have a ton of open ground to cover. His bubble is massive to cover from third parties and to help close the gap in pushing teams as well. Gibby's ultimate is very effective in the open spaces of Olympus, as well as in some spaces in World's Edge of course as well, where he was also very popular a couple of seasons ago, and the ability to be able to revive fast in the bubble is insane. Of course, he also has his 50 HP arm shield, which makes him a very scary character to come up against in close combat, believe me, especially when they're running a Mastiff, which is of course the meta weapon for this season. Gibbies are a scary prospect to be fighting, and you know when you're fighting a Gibby, you're in for a tough time if they know what they're doing. But of course, we wouldn't be talking about Season 7 if we weren't talking about the rise in Bloodhound plays. Bloodhound has really risen up to an S tier legend this season in my opinion, because we are seeing a ton more Bloodhounds, especially in ranked, because the scans are proving very useful. We're seeing a lot of third partying happen in Olympus and in World's Edge because teams are really going at it this season, especially in ranks, to grind for RP and just grind high kill games in general, and Bloodhound is such a strong legend to counter that, but also help you in pushing for kills and high kill games as well. Knowing exactly where enemies are means you're able to single out if someone is far away from their team, you can pounce on them as a 3-man and suddenly you're in a 3v2 situation. But the scan is also very useful in identifying in which direction a third party might be coming from, or if you think there's a team of rats hiding in a corner, you can scan and you'll find them instantly. Bloodhound's ultimate is also very strong as it increases your movement speed, making it so you can strafe a lot faster as well, although you will need to practice in the firing range to really get a hang of how it feels to be in the Bloodhound ultimate. Once you understand, you're going to be very hard to kill, especially with the fact that you have scans pretty much on demand every 6 to 7 seconds I believe. It's really great for a push. And with their ability to scan recon beacons this season as well, they are very viable, and everyone seems to be jumping on the Bloodhound hype train right now, so if you haven't already, make sure you give Bloodhound a try in Season 7. Last but not least, up in the S tier we also have Horizon, the latest legend to ever be added into Apex Legends, and for me, she is the strongest legend ever to be added into Apex alongside a seasonal update. Usually with the legends that are added into the game, they need a little bit of a buff here or there to bring them up to speed, but Horizon jumps instantly into the S tier in my opinion with her amazing tactical and passive abilities. Her ultimate is also a really good ability as well, but her tactical is what gives her the strength that she has. Having ultimate high ground on demand every 12 seconds, yes, every 12 seconds she gets one of her Horizon lifts, which are ultimately one of the strongest tactical abilities in the game by a mile. She can take high ground with it, she can sit at the top of it, she can strafe alongside it, and she has 100% accuracy whilst on the tactical lift. It is so impactful on fights that she can just fly up in the air shoot down on people and make sure that she's going to be hitting 100% of her shots, because as long as you have good accuracy, those shots will be connecting. This, alongside the fact that she is not stunned when she is falling from height, meaning she can pretty much dance around her enemies by throwing down a tactical ability and flying over their heads and landing behind their backs, is very, very strong. And we're seeing pro players like Asu hop on Horizon and absolutely slay lobbies because of the fact that they are free to move around them as they please. It's an amazing ability, a really, really fun ability, but also an insanely strong ability as well. Her ultimate is also pretty nice if combined with grenades like thermites and frag grenades, even arc stars. If you throw them into the middle of the ultimate once it's been thrown down and the enemies are sucked in, yeah, they're going to be having a bad time. But guys, let me know what you think of the tier list in the comment section below. Let me know what you think I got right, what you think I got wrong, and also let me know your tier lists in the section below. I love to read them, and your reasoning behind each choice will be really, really interesting as well. So be sure to leave that in the comment section below. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more regular Apex Legends content. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy and goodbye.